Welcome, everyone. As we are understanding the chemical sensitivity of our system, about the brain and all the respiratory center and the cardiac center and all that, one of the recommendations I would always have with any of this is to see if you can have your oximeter with you. And if you have the oximeter, keep that on, and you will notice a little bit something more about the oxygen supply, oxygen pressure, or also the heart rate. This is very helpful to do whenever you do any kind of practice. So it's always good to follow that. However, the thing we're going to do now is to understand the importance of another technique. Now, as these coughing we covered in the previous section, how does the coughing affect the message system to the brain? Same thing happens when you do swallowing. Now, coughing works through one mechanism. We already mentioned that mechanism because that empties out a little bit of extra carbon dioxide because you cough in between. You empty out the carbon dioxide. When you empty out the carbon dioxide, the stimulus or the sensation that needs to stimulate the brain to say, hey, breathe, 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 that gets lower. So the overall carbon dioxide is low because you coughed so much. And same thing, by the way, happens to sneeze. We didn't go to the sneeze yet, but coughing and sneezing, the same thing happens. It expels the carbon dioxide very quickly. The rate of expulsion is very fast. If you sneeze, somebody studied the speed of the sneeze, and it's almost like 100 miles an hour. that was, I don't know how the heck they noticed that, but that was high speed sneezing. Sneezing, particularly when you go very high, is so fast. Anyway, so that's now we'll talk about another technique, another method. It's called swallowing. And when you swallow, let's swallow and inhale and exhale first. And then swallow. As you swallow, the saliva collects in the back of the throat, and the throat moves up. The throat and entire assembly moves up, and then the swallow. Then it goes in the back. It moves up. Why does it move up? Anyway, put your hand up here. Now swallow. You'll notice that the whole Adam's apple moves up. The floor of the mouth here, it moves up. The Adam's apple moves up. Do it a couple of times to notice how that works so that you recognize what it is. Now, why does it happen? It happens because when you're swallowing the saliva or bolus or food or whatever it is, that should not go into the airway. So this thing moves up to close the airway. The whole assembly, talking assembly, the larynx we call it, that moves up. People who have situation when some of these do not work, and that happens in a lot of neurological conditions and all, they will have coughing when they start to swallow. It goes the wrong way. And we know how that happens. Many times if you are trying to do breathing and talking and swallowing, how many times say, oh my goodness, it went the wrong way, and you start coughing and oh my goodness, everything breaks loose. The tear comes out and all that stuff happens. Because that's a very big, bad thing to happen. And the entire body reacts that way. The heart rate goes up and breathing becomes different and all that. That is a very nice mechanism of understanding that. And the swallowing, when you do this, close it off, little holding of the breath also happens, slight holding of the breath. And at the same time, swallowing stimulates vagus nerve. It's a little different mechanism. Vagus nerve is stimulated. And when that happens, we'll see what happens. So let's do this. Inhale and exhale. You have your baseline about holding, and now keep your mind the same. Do not let your mind run away and be all over the place and not calm and all that. So keep the same kind of mental equipoise. Now swallow and hold. Notice what happens. Repeat it one more time. This is a short time. Inhale and exhale nicely. Collect a fair amount of bolus of saliva in your mouth. And as you're swallowing is putting in the back of the throat, you are holding your breath. Understand that. That's when you start, before that the swallowing occurs, as your bolus goes back, the saliva goes in the back of the throat. That's when you start your timer. That's your holding time, breath holding time. And do it one more time. So raise your hand if it was same or more. Okay. Raise your hand if it was shorter. Okay. So usually when it depends upon the bolus and how we are swallowing. Do this a few times to get a proper understanding about your own system and amount of breath you take before, after, all that. That requires your own study about how that happens. If all the systems are working at the same conditions, mental, physical, all that, then the vagus nerve gets stimulated during swallowing. And if the heart rate is being noticed, I'll be asking, some of you are using the oximeter later on, once this recording is done, to get a feedback about what the heart rate was. What happens to the heart rate? What happens to the oxygen? All that. So, but it is noticed that vagus nerve stimulation is done by swallowing. In fact, swallowing is used many times, and we do that all the time. When you start having any pain, you have some situation going on in the belly is hurting, you start swallowing a little bit. Swallowing reflex starts very quickly by the body so that it gets from sympathetic to a parasympathetic mode quickly. That happens all the time. And we notice it now that you're aware of it. You'll notice it during your day-to-day activities as to when the swallowing occurs on its own. Many times the swallowing occurs on its own. But this requires noticing it. This requires you notice, because the body is automatic many times. If you don't notice it, well, hey, the body tries to protect you anyway. Doesn't matter whether you notice or not, whether you as a ego and all that stuff up here, all the intelligence that is up there, whether you like it or not, biological intelligence is there. The biology continues to work anyway. Whether you understand it or not, it doesn't matter. So swallowing does stimulate vagus, and it is used by yogis when they swallow and hold their breath in the throat chakra. Hold it in the throat chakra. We're not going to go into there yet. But those are the kind of things that happens with swallowing. So swallowing can help reduce the blood pressure, can help reduce the heart rate, can relax the system. And again, it's part of breath holding also. And so it is a useful technique to understand when and how we can use it for our own benefit. Thank you.